Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Science of Sound. I am beyond thrilled today to be able to share conversation with five-time Grammy Award-winning bassist Victor Wooten, also author of The Music Lesson, a spiritual search for growth through music. Victor, thank you for your yes and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Geraldine. A really honored to be here. Thank you.
Hmm. So when we were talking about the spirit of music,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know that can go on for hours and hours, but let's begin there. What
sure.
is the spirit of music for you?
Um, for me, it's like the spirit of anything. You know, when we think of humans, uh, or anyone that's had a child. I have four children, and it's like when they're born, you see them in the physical flesh, but you kind of know that there's something else beyond that. That whatever that essence is beyond that has been there a while already. You know, there's something inside that physical body that makes that person who it is. We know it's not just flesh and bones. Science can't tell you when that individual entity, spirit, I guess we'll just call it spirit, enters into the baby. We don't know. But I'm convinced that that spirit, if we want to call it that, already exists. But the way I see it is on earth, things, for us to experience, things have to be physical, which means they have to vibrate. And music is the same way. And I'll start by saying everything I say is just my opinion. So this way I don't have to keep saying, in my opinion. We already know it's my opinion. But music already exists. We can hear it in our brains, we can imagine it. Whether we hear it in our brains or imagine it or not, it's still there somewhere. But like a human, for us on earth to experience it in the flesh, would have to say, it has to take physical form, as in vibration. And in religion, they talk about a trinity. Well, in music, it's the same. Music exists, but for music to be heard, it needs an instrument, or first, a person or an animal, a bird or something, right? So music, the instrument that comes together, it actually births the vibration that we call music. And so without the person or the conduit, I'll say, or the instrument or the vibration, the music's already there. And to me, that is the spirit of music that already exists. And that to me is what is sort of like has become my musical drive, my musical search, I guess, is to really commune and utilize, befriend, all of the above, that entity that already exists, rather than me as a musician thinking I always have to do it myself. That entity has been around a whole lot longer than me. In my 55 years, I'm considered a great musician, right? But I've only been around 55 years. Music's been around a whole lot longer than that. So why would I try to do it all myself? And why not use the spirit of music herself to make things a lot more wonderful? So
How beautiful.
thank
Music is that it's born out of that place that is pretty much indescribable, and it's born out of silence.
you. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And silence is a part of the music, is a
Mhm.
part of it. Again, in our physical realm, we have names for it. We call it space. We might call it rest or whatever. But it's all a part of music. You know, and that's the part. That's one of the parts of music that musicians practice the least. Right? We tell you to rest, but we don't think of rest as that we're still playing.
Oh, yeah.
If I if I wrote a piece of music and I didn't want you to play, I wouldn't leave those measures of music empty. I would write something that says play this. So we're actually playing space, and I like to relate it to a sports team where you might take a football team or even European football, soccer, and there's 22 people, 22 players on the field at the whole game, but only one person has the ball. But the other 21 aren't resting. They aren't just taking up space. And in many cases, if most cases, it's because they don't have the ball, they can pay more attention. They can see the openings, they can move. But because they're not just resting, they affect the game. And so my approach to music and teaching music is to help people realize that when you're resting or not playing a note or even playing space, the intention and the attention should still be there. And when you do that, there's a difference. And that relates to everything. The silence that we need to even hear or recognize the spirit of music or anything. It takes that silence. And so, for me, everything, music, sports, math, it's all a different painting of the same thing. You know, we're talking about spirit, we're talking about space, we could be talking about anything. It just happened to be talking about music.
Victor, how did you come to be a musician? And how did that path that you've walked on and enriched so many lives, how did that path become a spiritual search?
Yeah, wow. Well, I'll start with the music. Well, in both cases, in all cases, I'm just very, very fortunate and very lucky to be born to the right people at the right time. I have two amazing parents. They're no longer with us in the flesh, but just unbelievable wisdom. Um, and it was like both of our parents uh, planted spiritual vitamins in all of us five boys. I'm the youngest of five boys who all play music. So when I was born, they already knew I was the bass player because that's what they needed. Right? So again, call it luck. I don't know, but it feels like I had nothing to do with that. I was just lucky. So my musical path was very easy. But starting with my parents and even their parents, they grew up poor, black in the South. Times weren't good for them, for those people. Anyone with color, it was a rough type of life. Makes this, the pandemic that I'm going through right now, the quarantine seem kind of easy. I can hear my dad, who's been in the Korean War fighting on the ground. I could hear his voice saying, "What, you call this hard? All you got to do is sit inside and watch Netflix." And I say that lightly because I know there's lots of people hurting, dying. I've gotten relatives and friends that are either sick or have died, so I know it's a real thing. But it has always been a real thing for every generation, and I take this over what my parents had to go through.
Mhm.
But anyway, the wisdom, the jewels, the things that they planted in us boys that I didn't realize what it was at the time. The things they made us memorize, sayings that we heard over and over, allowing us. I'm in kindergarten, but we're playing nightclubs every weekend, and to be able to do that with their guidance, seeing everything that adults do in nightclubs, but having parents to hear our thoughts about it, rationalize about it, not hide things, but teach us how to deal with it, knowing that we're going to have to deal with it on our own at some point. Wisdom. And since my four older brothers were with my parents before me, they became four extra parents. So by the time I came along, they were guiding me, teaching me the same way. We weren't five brothers that ever fought. Parents would not allow it. We couldn't even argue. We weren't allowed to argue. We could have discussions. We could have heated discussions. But if my mom felt it turning into an argue, she would stop it. So it's just really wise people. So, and my brothers and my parents all think differently. They know how to think inside the box, but their box is huge, huge. And I'm just a product of that, good or bad. I'm a product of that. Being able to think differently and know that there's more than what meets the eye. So all of my brothers, as well as my parents, have always searched for more.
And you mentioned special quotes or special structures of wisdom.
Yeah, you know, the next book. Well, we talked about the spirit of music. The next book that's already written that we hope comes out in the fall is called The Spirit of Music. But the book I'm about to start well, I've already started, I'm going to finish, is a book on my parents' quotes. And you know, one of them that a lot of people have heard. One organization even made a T-shirt out of it. Is my mom would say, "What does the world need with just another good musician?" She says, "We have plenty." She says, "What the world needs are good people."
Mm.
And that was what they wanted us to be first. You know, a musician playing music is what I do, and I can put that down. But what's left is who I am. And that's what our parents were really concerned with. And they wanted us to be concerned with it because they knew that uh, five black boys growing up, born in the 50s and 60s, they knew what we might be facing as we got older and went out into society. We might be facing a society that didn't support us back. That was possible. So our parents wanted us to know who we were. They want us to know that we were worthy, even if everyone else said we weren't. Whatever we did, we had to be successful at it. Didn't mean we had to get the public's acknowledgement. Another quote my mom would say when we were playing gigs, I mean, as young kids, I was doing outdoor, outside of the house gigs before I started school, kindergarten. But my parents would say, "You boys are already successful. The rest of the world, they just don't know it yet." And so we learned that success wasn't dependent on what you thought of me. It was dependent upon what I thought, right? Did I do a good job? Am I honest? Am I telling the truth? You know, and that's what all of us brothers we still stand on those morals today. And I just do my best to put that inside every piece of music.
I mean, Victor, that gives such a grounding and stability, which is, what we wish as teachers also for our young people,
Right.
to have that sense of stability inside yourself, that you don't have to look to the outside for any sort of self affirmation.
Right. And it also helps when you have that inside your own self. When you do look to the outside, you're able to see it in others,
Mhm.
even when they can't see it in themselves. And and as becoming a teacher and getting to teach a lot, it saddens me that I think it's safe to say most people don't have that confidence in themselves. Like they don't know the gifts they really have and their own spirit, who they are. And in many cases, we are defining ourselves by what we think other people think. And in most cases, 99 out of 100% of the time, what we think they think, they're not thinking. you know,
Right, because when we live in the mind and we create stories about that, it's not the truth.
right. Most of the cases, it's not. Yeah.
There's such a strong love, there's such a strong heart presence that comes just emanating from you. And now I feel the connection to your parents and who they who they are, who they were,
Yeah.
what they created in the structure of your family.
They were good ones. They knew what they were doing.
Wow.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing, and it's paid off. All of us brothers, we're not the most famous people. We don't make the most money, but all my brothers are changing people's lives. And like my brother Reggie, my oldest brother, he's the one that taught me to play. He plays guitar, and just about everything I do, things I'm known for techniques I'm known for on the bass, crazy things I do, slinging the bass around my neck. It all came from Reggie. But he likes to just sit in the background and just smile and watch, and let me take all the credit. And this started when I was a kid. I have posters on my wall right now from when I was 8, and big letters, the 8-year-old bass ace, Victor Wooten, and I get all this credit. And Reggie would give me these routines and teach me how to play behind my head and all these kind of things. And if I'm 8, he's my oldest brother. He's only 16. So when he was teaching me at 2, he was only 10. So he taught me to play bass. He taught my brother Joseph. If I'm 2, Joseph's 5. So 8-year-old Reggie taught Joseph. No, let me get this right. If I'm 2, Reggie's 8 years older than me. He's 10. Joseph is 5. So Reggie also taught Joseph to play keyboards. All right. So he taught me. He's 10-year-old boy teaches his 10-year-old brother to play. Teaches his 2-year-old brother me to play bass, and his 5-year-old brother to play keyboards. So if Reggie's 10, Roy is 9, Rudy is 8. They're all just really close, those three. And then Joseph and me, and Reggie taught Joseph and me. By the time I'm 5, we're literally on tour. There's a great soul singer named Curtis Mayfield. And we were living in Sacramento at the time, but we were his opening band. I think Reggie said it was Curtis Mayfield's Superfly tour on the West Coast throughout California and San Francisco and the West Coast. And so people hear that, and I get so much credit. You were 5, blah blah blah. The real credit is how does a 10-year-old boy get his younger brothers good enough in a few short years to where we're on a national, you know, tour with a big star? There's the story, right? Which 10-year-old boy do you know who can do that, or who would do that? They all can, but who would do that? So that's where it really comes from. I'm just a product of luck, I guess, to be born to the right people at the right time. And so I understand, at least as much as I know how to, I understand how lucky, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and I just want to give to other people because I've what was given to me. You know?
I know my dad used to say when we were little, and he meant it really from the inside out, to whom much is given, much will be required. And that always stuck with me too, like this kind of, if we talk about music as a language, and I know you have an incredible video of music as a language. If we talk about that, it there's a responsibility, a joy that you feel that you want to share exactly what you're sharing with us right now.
Yeah.
How
To write that quote down, that's good.
that was my dad.
Yeah, much
Yeah,
will be required. Huh?
yeah, and it's there's a joyful heart in that. You
Yeah,
know, it's like being able to put this series together and to have a conversation with you, and a real and authentic conversation. Like, what was it like for a 2-year-old to have the bass in his hand? What was it like for a 5-year-old with his big brother, who I'm sure was the world to you?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
that like, and what do you remember about that?
Well,
And
I
so,
mean, I was born into it, so it's just what it was. Literally, it's just what it was. Even when I was finally in school on a Friday, you come home, you do a little homework, and you take a nap. Then we have a gig at 10 at night, from 10 to 2 was a gig. So I can look back now and see how special it was. But back then, I was the bass player. We have to practice, got to learn songs. We're playing a wedding. The wedding couple wants this song. We got to learn it. Reggie teaches me my part. Okay, can I go out and play now? Yep. Okay, go out and play like a normal kid. You grow up on a farm. You're good at farming. That's what you probably don't expect to grow up and be a farmer. I never thought I was gonna be a musician as a career. That came later. You know,
mhm.
but I do. There's a lot I do remember. It for me musically. It started when we moved to Hawaii, and I was around 1 year old, and I can remember sitting in the front yard outside playing. Us brothers were playing in the neighborhood, and the kids would come out and dance, and we would play for them. And at the time, I had a little toy Mickey Mouse guitar. You really couldn't play it, but it was a way for me to, like a baby talk. You know, you don't exclude the baby from the conversation because they don't know English yet. You let them talk however they choose. The words are wrong, but the emotion and the intention is right. Right? And then in a human, you learn the words later. You learn the emotion. You learn the language first. The words are the last thing you learn. In music, we reverse it. No, you got to learn these notes first. You find the emotion later. That's just backwards. So I was learning how to play music before I learned to play an instrument, which is the great gift that my brothers gave me. I would sit around and bop, holding a toy, strumming. My rhythm was great. I knew what it meant if my brother opened up his hi hat. You know, I didn't know what the name of it was, but if my brother went from a major seven to a dominant seven, you hear what's coming next. Yeah, I don't know names for it, but your body knows it. The same way a kid knows if your mom's happy or mad. A question goes up at the end, a statement goes down in pitch. You learn so much, and then you learn the words, you know. And so I learned music exactly the same way and at the same time as I was learning to talk, which is why, for better or worse, I'm really natural when it comes to playing music.
And if we talk about, as you said at the beginning, vibration and
Hmm.
energy, as a young boy, you were already building the energetic circuits to house this incredible musician that you became.
Absolutely.
You were building those circuits. So for your body, for your
Yeah,
whole system, it's what you did.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's a lot of circuits. You know, there's the physical circuit, there's the emotional, you know, what you feel, you know, how you think, how you don't think, what your subconscious knows. So I'm sure before I was born, I was hearing my brothers jam and play the same way you hear your parents' voice and you're born knowing them. I was knowing music probably at birth, even though I don't remember that. But again, I'm just a product of good people who included me. They never made me feel like the young one who didn't know anything. You I'm grateful for that. Yeah,
Do you think that there was a special moment? I mean, was there a special moment where you had a real realization about a deeper path for yourself? I mean, what you're,
absolutely.
yeah.
A few,
Hmm.
a few. You know, one I can remember, and at this stage of my life, this is not as deep, but at the time it was. I can remember being on stage and Reggie would say, "Hey, do this," and if I did this, the audience would respond in a certain way. And even as youngsters, we learned how to perform. Now, when it comes to music, that's powerful because when you're a good performer, the better performer you are, the less musical talent you have to have. Right? And at the risk of sounding rude and mean, you see it a lot in the pop music world, okay? Where the the to me the gift of the pop music world is they know how to deliver the gift they have, the gift of music. Even if the gift is small, they know the art of delivery. They put on a show, they'll dress, they'll do choreography, things like that. Where you might take jazz musicians who practice all the time and their musical gift is high, but we don't know how to deliver it. We just get up there and play and expect the audience to get it. Right? And the audience can hear good music at home. When they come to see it, they need something more. You know, so I learned how to perform as a very, very youngster. And I can remember going, whoa, if I do this, they'll do that. And that was really, really cool. Really, really cool and powerful. But the bigger one was in 91. I had read a book by a man named Tom Brown Jr. He's a naturalist and a teacher. The book is called The Tracker. And Tom Brown still teaches, probably in his 70s now. He teaches people how to live off the land. information he learned from an Apache elder as a boy, like tracking animals, how to rub sticks together and make fire, how to listen to the birds and not only tell that that's a chickadee or that's a whatever, but what are they saying? You know, all that stuff that the our ancestors had to know for us to still be here. So I read his book and just I said I got to meet this guy, I got to find him. And I did, and I ended up taking classes with him for 10 years, 91 to 2001. But my first class with him, and he's talking about nature and awareness, what he calls wide angle vision and spirituality. In my head, I'm saying, told myself, this guy's teaching music. He doesn't call it that, and he may not be musical, but this is what he's teaching. And more so, this is how music should be taught. Right? We tell musicians to go sit in a room for 8 hours and practice. Right? You don't learn to be natural in a room. Right? You don't learn. Imagine trying to learn English in a room by yourself, practicing words over and over. No, you got to get out and communicate. You practice a little, then you get out and use it. And that was the way Tom taught. We asked Tom a question, he'd answer with a question back. He called it coyote teaching, where he's tricking you into learning more than you asked. You know, and but I was aware, and I'm noticing this stuff, and I'm taking notes, but I stayed around for a good 10 years, going to class, and I took a lot of his information and turned it into musical information. And then I started running my own musical camps. But I call them, well, the first camp we did for the first 8 years were only for bass players. But it wasn't a bass camp, it was a bass slash nature camp. Bass slash nature camp. And I made sure we're outdoors, we're in the woods. And I had some of Tom Brown's nature instructors come and teach at the music camp. And now this is our 21st year of doing it. And it works. People get it. People get it. So those were a couple just like moments. There were more, but those are a couple moments that really stick out and defined, you know, really how I approach music, playing it and sharing it. Yeah.
Yeah, when you say that the kids and the young people really get it, what is it as an educator that you feel in that moment when a camp is finished?
Tired.
Of course.
Yeah, really tired. My body is like my body knows before my mind does that we're done, you know. And all of a sudden I'm sitting down and I'm ready to sleep. But I, I'll quote a student that really sums it up for me. And this was the first camp. I've heard it twice. I heard it last year, and I heard it our very first camp, where a student came up to me afterwards, and he was a young kid, early teens, fighting back tears, and a male, a boy. And he said, "You know, Victor," he said, "when I first got here, I was like, wow, there goes Victor Wooten." He says, "Now I look at everybody that way." And I was like, yeah, cool. And this was the first one where I had no idea if people were going to get it. I mean, we have them blindfolded. We do these outdoor walking through the woods holding a piece of string. Weird exercises that appear to have nothing to do with music. And there are some people who've never been who will literally criticize what they've heard about the camp. But that's fine. Fine with me. But to see these young people and old people, because we take all ages, get that, amazing to me. Amazing. And what they're getting, it's not like my take on that is when people come there, I knew people would first be coming to the camp because of me. Because at the time in the year 2000, there were no base camps.
Mhm.
So I knew they were coming for me, and I wanted to make sure they got a good dose of me, but the real me, not who they see on record or whatever. And what I notice is happens is they come there putting me on this pedestal, and I don't come off of it on purpose. I'm not gonna. If you see me up here, good. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because what you see is you, not me. If you can see that high, why would I want to diminish that, right? But they find out that they're on the same pedestal, right? I become normal to them, and I don't lower in their minds. They raise up. They realize, wow, I'm like him. I can do what he does because I'm there at the camp 24/7. We eat lunch, I'm there, right? If we had nobody showered in 3 days, it's me too. You know, my hair is messed up or whatever. I'm just one of them, but they still look up to me. But now they're looking at me eye to eye from a higher eye to eye from a higher place. To me, that's my most favorite thing. Whether they ever play music again, it's not my. I don't care, right? It's that they find themselves and they like who they found. They love who they found. That to me is the biggest thing. And that's what all my mom wanted is for you to know who you are and be a good person and to love that person. Music's a byproduct.
Victor, that is so, it's so touching. It's so humbling. It's in a spirit of generosity, in a true teacher that helps to really help the student to find their true, authentic expression and to love themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it started for me as a baby, and that's why I'm going to write a book of my parents' quotes because people need to hear it. I know that all people didn't have this.
Yeah.
And even through the hardships that my parents were going through, and they were hard, that's a whole nother set of stories. But
Mhm.
they still made time for their kids, and the time they made were valuable for us. And they did stuff that literally did not make sense as a kid. Like my three older brothers had to enter into speaking competitions, speech competitions, right? But they had to write the speeches, memorize them, and they're all parents, especially mom approved. So they had to be speeches that taught character, worthiness, how you're supposed to act, like quotes like you just said, to whom much is given, much will be required. The speeches had to be like that. Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches. And then they had to go in front of a crowd, recite it, and then they would win trophies. Trophies weren't important. But my parents, I look back now and I say, okay, my parents knew that we couldn't, no, that we needed to be better again. And I don't mean to make it a racial thing, but as five black boys I was born in '64, so they were born before me, '50s. Joseph 61. What we were facing, and we needed to be able to speak clearly, state our mind, you know, and not like talking like we're just from the hood or the neighborhood. We do that in the hood or the neighborhood, but when we go out at there, we have to know what we're saying and how to say it. And they taught us that very, very young, very young. We didn't know why we're making my brother, Joseph, us younger two, Joseph and I never had to do it, but the three older ones did. And because my parents knew that whatever the older brothers did, the younger brothers are going to do. And the three older brothers are only 2 years apart. So they were like one child almost. They taught them the same. And then the other brothers taught us. So all of my brothers, very clear speakers, very clear. They know what to say, and then they say it clearly. You don't have to ask them to say it again. They just know. And I see it now, looking back on it. I can see where it came from. Now, how my parents knew to do that is beyond me. How they knew, because they didn't grow up that way. But they just knew what we were facing, and they wanted to just, make the path as clear as possible for us.
I mean, you were blessed to grow up in a family that really defines the true meaning of family. And to play music with your brothers and to be guided by
Yeah,
parents that were so inspirational and loving and
yeah. It's invaluable.
uh,
Yeah.
And how about time with um, Bella Fleck? How about?
Ah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, yeah, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Bela's a hero of mine, and I've learned so much from him. That was not in my, what's the word, my plan, my life plan, you know. I never thought that the world would know of me because I play with a banjo player, right? I was like, banjo is not even a real instrument to me, you know. At first, I was like, what is you know? But wow, meeting Bela Fleck changed all of that. I learned about being a band leader. You know, Bela said that he is a leader among equals. You know, he always treated his band as equals. If he taught us a new song, he would never tell me what to play. He would just let me hear his new song, and I got to respond to it. I always was given a chance to have a first impression. Rather than saying, here's the part, here's the chords, he would say nothing except play and see how I responded. Beautiful, just smart guy. And we still play together. Over 30 years later, we still do it. So I've learned a lot. I've been able to see the world. I've been on the Great Wall of China. I've been in Australia. You know, I've played way in the outback, the hill tribes of Indonesia and Thailand, Philippines. You know, for tribes because of Bela Fleck. And I'm a much, much better musician because of Bela Fleck. Because before Bela, I had really only played with my brothers. You know, so I'd almost like just lived at home. But you really grow up when you move out of your house. And I learned I grew up musically playing with Bela.
And with Bela, can you share something about really experiencing music as this universal language?
Oh man, yeah. Okay, so we in the mid '90s, the band we'd been a quartet most of the time, but we were a trio for a while, and we did what's called a State Department tour. It's sort of like a USO tour where you go overseas and you represent the country. But we weren't going really to play for troops. We were given high military ranking for like a month, and we went over and we were playing for ambassadors and dignitaries. Then we do some public concerts too, but we're hanging with the officials, the U.S. ambassadors, the ambassador of Mongolia or whatever. So we went to 7 Asian countries. And I can't remember which country this was. My wife would remember. But we were playing for what they called a hill tribe, meaning just 2,000 people that lived in the hills. And we brought our strange music to them. And it's strange. My brother Roy is the drummer in that band. And they call him Future Man because his thoughts are way ahead of us, right? So he plays this electronic drum kit that he invented. It looks more like a guitar you might see on the deck of Star Trek or the Enterprise, but he's playing drums on it, right? So he's got that. He wears a pirate hat, got a banjo player, and then me, I used to do literally back handsprings with the bass on. I was young and crazy. So we're out there for this hill tribe, and they tell us, our government tells us, these people have never had a live band before. There's about 2,000 in their tribe. We hope maybe 500 will show up. All 2,000 of them showed up. Now, Bela, being the smart guy he is, every country we went to, he had prearranged that they would send us some of their music and music that everybody knows, like our national anthem or, one of the folk songs that our whole country knows. So we learned some of their songs. So we're playing for this hill tribe and we're playing our music and they're polite, they're listening. They're all in robes and the women have their face covered, Muslim country, I'm guessing. And it was just, they're polite. But when we started playing their song, 2,000 people jumped up, dancing, singing. And in that moment, it hit me. There is no longer a band and an audience. It was just oneness for a moment, right? And even though I knew it really solidified the thought of oneness and the power that music has to bring oneness about, even for a fleeting moment. There's very few things I think on the planet that we do that has the power to bring people together the way music does. And I saw it in a place where we don't speak the same language. Maybe if we pray at all, we're probably praying to a different God in our minds, different political, monetary statuses. But for that moment, we were together. And that was powerful, very powerful. So that is my ultimate goal. I was going to say every time I play, but even before I play, that's the goal, is to bring that moment back. Because it could be the only time someone in their whole life gets to experience that, but you get to escape everything and you become everything in that moment, inside of music. Music has that power. And you playing the bowls, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Connection. It's connection beyond any language.
Yes. Absolutely.
Victor, in terms of our audience and the sacred science of sound, is there something that you would encourage people to integrate in their daily lives to, so if we're not, people are not musicians and they enjoy music, what might you encourage people to do? Is there something you have as a personal routine also,
Sure.
uh, personal practice?
Yeah. My parents didn't call it this, but I've learned it from an autistic kid who came to our camps. Taught me a phrase he called "win the day." WIN, just win the day, which means get every part of your day as good as possible and win it. And it starts as for me and a lot of people, and my dad in the military. It starts when we first wake up. We get up and make our bed. Right? Make it because you can. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're a success. You've done something successful. Like a lot of us put success way in the future. Success is where you stand right now, right? And no one has to know about it. But when you do these little things, you clean up after yourself. I leave my desk nice. I make my bed. I fold my clothes, put them away. I clean up in the bathroom after I brush my teeth. I wash my dishes. All of a sudden, success is your habit. You can literally make success a habit. Right? And I learned this. I didn't know I was learning it as a kid. I was learning it as a kid, but it became conscious when a student at my camp heard me talk, and he said, "Oh, that's we call that win the day." And he told me a story about a football coach who taught his team that, and they hadn't won a championship in over 101 years. And that year, when the new coach taught the team that, they had an undefeated season. You know, powerful, powerful. Another thing that I like is there's a nature teacher that I met who was teaching nature for Tom Brown Jr. And this guy now teaches. He has his own school called Earth School, but he also teaches with me at my own camps. He teaches the nature part, and his name is Richard Cleveland. And Richard tells every class and every student, he says a few times a day, so I want you to do this at least twice a day, is to just stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself, what am I missing? All right? And it's amazing if you do it, all of a sudden you'll hear this sound. You'll see this thing. You'll think, you'll hear your thoughts. And then you might just go about your day. Right? But it's very, very valuable just to stop and ask, what am I missing? And so I'll use that musically too, and literally ask music, what am I missing? Because we're taught to think this is a chord, I should play this. The drum is doing this, and it needs this bass part. Why not ask music, what music wants, or I would say what she wants.
Mhm.
And like a friend, if your friend knows you're not listening to him or her and you don't talk, they won't be your friend for that long. And I think music's the same way. For a lot of us, music doesn't show up that often, and we're struggling. Music knows you're not listening, but when music knows you're there and you're listening, Wow, she shows up a whole lot more frequently. And that thought process came from hearing my friend Richard say stop and ask, what am I missing?
In a way, what you're describing is presence. And I know, like when I'm playing the bowls and or singing and become very, very present in that moment, something completely surprising opens into
Absolutely.
a bigger dimension that you than you could have conceived just by
Right.
thinking about it, right?
Absolutely. And you don't have to recognize that other place for it to have a good effect on
Yeah.
you, right? So it's like we take a vitamin. I talked about my parents' spiritual vitamins. Most of us, especially in our 50s and 60s, we're taking whatever pills and vitamins. We got our little Monday through Sunday, we don't take that pill and focus on it and say work, work. You take it and you forget about it, and it does what it does without our consciousness. So spirit is that way. It just sometimes might need a doorway to open, to get in and do what it's going to do. So sometimes when we just stop, right, and be present, there's no way with a human brain to really take it all in, but it doesn't mean that it's not all coming in, right? So it's worth it just to do it, just to stop, every now and then and be present. And kids live there. Young kids, they live there. That's why time goes by so slowly, is because they're just in the now. You know, they're not worried about what's going to happen next month, the grades they're going to get. Is this bill paid? What this person thinks? They're just right here. And as we grow and we learn more and we get more responsibility, we spend more and more time away from the now, where most of our attention is either in the future or the past, what happened or what might happen, where the beauty is in the now.
Are there any particular challenges that have been um, particularly for you in your life that you've sat with, been present, and they've transformed?
Well, I'm working on one right now. Just before I was speaking with you, I was on a call with a woman from Spain. I'm dealing with a condition that's called focal dystonia, and dystonia, dystonia or dystonia. Focal meaning in one location. And I only found out about it about 2 years ago. I've been dealing with it for about 2 decades, but I didn't know what it was. Slowly coming on more. And it's a weird thing where the brain has learned to tell my fingers to do the wrong thing. So, in other words, my hands are fine, my brain is fine, my fingers work. But if I pick up a guitar, these three fingers curl into a ball. And they don't want to do this. And it's the weirdest sensation. And so now I've met many, many musicians who have it, vocalists. I've met singers who have it in their throat, horn players who get it in their lips or in their fingers, writers get it and they can't write anymore. Golfers get it, lose their swing. I haven't met anyone, but I've seen people who have it in their neck and they can't control their head, makes it hard to walk. But it's a neurological. It's a brain thing. Nothing wrong with the hands. And so I found a woman. Well, my wife found a woman in Spain who seems to be dealing with the cause, right? Where a lot of people are treating the fingers. You can even get Botox shot into the nerve, and it relaxes the nerve so it doesn't fire as easily, and it actually helps. A lot of things that help, but it's not the cause. And this woman is different. Wow! When I read her website, I said I gotta meet this woman. And so I just spent my latest just today working with her, and she's amazing. It has to do with eye position, where the eyes are, to get to the deep part of the brain, and just it's like really weird, but it's working. So my hands are really getting better, you know. And it's not the normal exercises and stretches that people have had me do. This is all brain work. you know, because there is a cause. So this has been the one of the biggest musical challenges that I've ever had to deal with, because what I do is very difficult to do. But it's making me have to live up to my own teachings and my own words when people come up to me and say, well, you know, I've got a bent index finger, you know, or my hands are small, or I can't play, or whatever. I'm like, of course you can play, you know. I've seen people with no arms play, literally. You know, I've seen people play with their feet, and I mean literally, and singing, and I'm saying nothing should stop you from playing. So it's like life is saying, okay, this you prove it, and so I have been, but it's still a challenge, you know. But it's weird because it's kind of fun. It's sort of like I like when I play, I don't get nervous, but it's so much fun when I get put into a situation where I'm nervous. I'm like, this is cool, you know. So this challenge and knowing that I'm going to overcome it, and knowing that once I overcome it, or even as I'm overcoming it, I'm going to be able to help a lot of other people that have the same condition. That to me excites me because, you know, most people who have, a lot of people, I should say, who have dystonia keep it secret.
Hmm.
They don't want anyone to know. I've been very vocal. I've talked to every workshop I do, I mention it. I've been online talking about it. And what it's done is it's brought people from around the world to me, either offering help or seeking help or just wanting to talk. But so many people have said, have you tried this? Did you read this guy's book? This artist who draws the cartoon Dilbert, he had dystonia. He wrote about it in his book, you know. So I've been learning a whole lot really quickly because I've been open about it. But it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Yeah. And I think we learn as we age and mature also that those things, as painful as and as uncomfortable as they are, can truly be, as you said, in our favor.
Absolutely.
Opening us. I know when I lost my son, I just thought, how could life ever go
Mm.
on, right?
Wow, you
And
lost your son. Wow.
yeah, and you begin to find a way through the challenges that life gives you.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's created a whole new opening for people to connect with you and for just your vulnerability about it. We're
Right.
not Superman. I mean, none of us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I think we're here on the planet not to have to be Superman.
yeah,
You know, we're allowed to experience it all. You know, yeah. That I think that's part of the human experience is to kind of like we get to forget who we really are. You know, we're allowed to forget how special or where we came from, and that we're a gift, and we're the only one with this fingerprint that's never been here and won't ever be here again. That's amazing, right? But we
that's
can forget about that. We're allowed to, you know, just so that we can experience. And on Earth, you know, one thing creates the other. The Earth kind of works in opposites. You know, to have good, there has to be bad. Right? It doesn't mean you have to choose bad, but you can't choose anything if what you're choosing against is doesn't exist. You know. So yes, to be a light, there has to be darkness, right?
I was just thinking the same
Yeah.
thing. There is no light without the darkness, and it's
Right.
understanding that in that darkness, in that void, in that thing that we think we fear, is unlimited possibility.
Unlimited possibilities.
Creation is in that darkness or that void, and
Absolutely, absolutely. But also, I should say, if our light's not that bright and we want to shine it and make a difference, then it has to get dark. Like if I want to light a match in here, it's not going to do much. But for this light to do a lot, it's got to get really dark. All right. So someone like you can be in a bright room as bright as it is and make it brighter. Not everyone can do that, right? But a lot of us want to be lights. Everybody at some point. But because the light we've worked, you know, we haven't really worked on and gotten it so bright, for us to be the light, it has to get dark. And then we get so afraid of the dark, or we start cursing the darkness, we forget that we asked for it so that we could be the light, you know. But the people like you and the person I'm trying to be is the person who can light up a bright room, right? Not to shine the light, not to showcase your light, but to show everyone else theirs, you
Right.
know, and leading by example. And and to me, that's what all my heroes did. You know, whether I'm reading about Jesus or Buddha or the Dalai Lama or anyone, that's what they do. They help you be better. And when you can't see your own light, they'll say, "Okay, look at mine." You know, look at use me as your example. But yours, you can do more than me. You know, and I love that. What a great example. Yeah.
Victor, what an amazing conversation. I'm so inspired.
Thank
And
you. Thanks for having me here. It's fun stuff to talk about with
oh,
people who get it and are talking about the same similar things. I love it. Thank you.
is there anything you'd like to close with? Anything that you'd like to share? What's you're planning? I know you're the new books that
Yeah,
you're.
there's always stuff, you know. Um, but yeah, there's a new book that's coming. But I would start for people to check out The Music Lesson, a spiritual search for growth through music. Um, like my camps, the subject is music, but it's really not about music. It's about life and people and character. But I use music as a means to get there. Music is one of those things where you can talk about anything. Through music, I can talk about religion. It's a safe way to talk about politics, a safe way to talk about racism, equality, inequality. You just call it music and it's safe.
Can you please show me how you talk about politics?
Well, absolutely. I mean, but seriously, there's a whole lot of political things in music, right? There's the jazz guys who don't like the classical people, or the classical people who don't like, and they're all forgetting that, or not realizing we're all still using the same notes. No, jazz people aren't so good that they get a 13th note, right? Yeah, it's still the same stuff, So you can point at that, like in the book, The Music Lesson. Um, the teacher Michael gets on a keyboard and plays a C and a C sharp right next to each other. And he asked a young student, that's sort of like my character, the young airheaded student. You listen to these two notes, what do they sound like? And they clash. They sound awful. A C and a C sharp, they rub against each other. So then Michael takes the C, puts it up an octave, same note up an octave, plays a C sharp, and now the C's up an octave. And now that's the major seventh, and it sounds beautiful. Same two notes. So what the student starts to realize, wow, when I see a problem or something, maybe I'm viewing it in the wrong octave. And it's up to me to find the beauty in it. Right? So music has a way of showing everything. Think about a band. A band is better when all the instruments are different. Right? It can work when they're all the same, but they're better when every instrument's different. So we celebrate our differences. I don't even know what to play until I hear what you played.
Yeah.
Right? We tune together first. We make an agreement first before we start the conversation. Right? So music is a great microcosm of how the macrocosm of life should be. Whether it's politics, whether it's religion. Nobody cares how expensive Jimi Hendrix's guitar was, right? Who cared? We weren't listening to the guitar anyway. We wanted to hear him, right? So there's a whole lot of things that come through music that music causes us to forget a lot of the things that don't really matter. Music is so powerful that when you go to the concert, you don't care who the person next to you voted for, or who she prays to, or how much money he has. You don't care about any of that. We come to the concert to agree. That's why we're there, to agree. And no individual or no side is going to win or lose like sports. We're all going to win, right? That's powerful, right? And you don't have to believe in the musician, right? I might go see Taylor Swift. I don't know who she voted for. I don't know what church she goes to. I don't know or care how much money she has. It's music, right? That is powerful, powerful. But as Stan Lee and Spider Man say, with power comes responsibility, right? And there are a lot of musicians out there who have not been responsible. They have the gift, and I'm not here to criticize that, but I want to be, as you, I want to be one of the responsible ones that are using this gift to help people, not just myself. Yeah. So music's powerful, and that's why I say I can talk about equality, inequality, religion, politics. You can talk about all of it. I just call it music. I talk about God. Musician says, well, what should I play? What is the music asking you to play? Just quiet and listen to the music. Just listen to the music. What's it need from a basis? What kind of drum beat does it need? Right? That's the same as in life. Just listen. What is life asking? What is your inner self? What is God? Whatever you want to call it. For my safety, I just call it music. I know it's the same thing. Just call it music, and I'm still safe. Because music is still one of those entities that we don't feel the need to argue about all the time, like politics or religion or something like that.
And that's the spirit of music.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you can feel it and not have to know anything about it, you're starting to tap into the spirit of it. Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Victor, something else popped in my mind. Will you just share a moment how you created your special bass?
My special bass, I have to think of which special bass it is.
Um, the yin
Well,
yang bass?
what's that?
The yin yang bass?
Yes, yes. So I just have, as a kid, I've loved, the yin yang symbol, the two dots. I
Mhm.
got into it first because I always loved martial arts. And my dad taught me a little bit about judo that he had learned being in the Korean War. And the Koreans taught us about judo. So he taught me that. And I got into martial arts. And every time through martial arts, I would see this symbol. And I didn't know what it meant. I just liked it. And then I started to learn a little bit about it, equality, and a little bit of good is in the bad, all that kind of stuff. But then it goes so much further. And in my view of life, all of life is based on this symbol, all of it, right? Opposites, right? You are what you are only in relationship to what you aren't, right? If you don't have what you aren't, you can't define yourself. One of the cool things about being human is having choice. You can't make choice unless you have something to choose from, right? And so for me, this encompasses all of it. And this great company in Brooklyn, New York, Fodera, I've been using their bases since 1983. And as I started becoming more known and touring the world, and people started seeing their bases more, and they started to grow, I was able to ask them to make a yin yang base. And Vinny Fodera came up with exactly how to do it. And this is two different types of wood. This is ebony, and this is a Spanish wood. I have another one over there. My wife's name is Holly, so it's ebony wood and Hollywood. And even the headstock has a yin yang on it, and their emblem is a butterfly with an F in the middle. And this is a monarch style base. But yeah, so it was just an idea of mine. Um, that Vinny and Joey, the creators of Fodera, figured out how to actually make it. And it came out much more beautiful than the idea. It's a good idea that they made great. You know, and now I've kind of been known uh, for these bases. Someone actually gave this to me. There's some company that are making these now, and you can go out and buy different people's bases, a Paul McCartney bass or Bootsy Collins. And so I was honored when someone actually gave me this. I said, "Whoa, this is cool." So, but I also I have a bass that I can bow, and I don't have it out here right now. But I'm I wrote a concerto for orchestra and bass, and I was literally supposed to be performing it right now this weekend in Chicago, but the quarantine and the virus, it got moved to next year, which works in my favor because I can practice it more and get my hands working better. But I built a bass that I hold this way, but it has a curved fingerboard and I can bow it.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's the most recent special bass. And so when you said that, I was thinking, wait a minute, did you see the bow bass yet? I didn't think I showed that to you. Maybe you're psychic. The bowls have been talking to you or something. No, but so that's another special bass that hopefully you'll get to see and hear at some point.
wow. And how does that, as a musician, how does that feel different? What does that do that's different for you?
Yeah, it's way different. The thing, like if you think like a cello, the sustain you get from the bow, the sustain of the vibrato or violin, you can recognize that sound. It's hard to get that on an electric instrument with frets. We hit a note and the note dies out. You don't get that long sustain. But I played cello in the sixth grade and I've always longed for that sound. And so eventually, again, I talked to Fodera, Joey, and Vinny, the same guys, gave them another idea, and we came up with a way of building it. And a few years ago, I co-wrote a concerto for the Nashville Symphony, for Nashville Symphony and Bass. And I wrote it with a wonderful woman named Connie Ellisor here in Nashville. And I debuted the bow bass in that concerto. We eventually did the concerto also with the how do you say it? Chicago Sinfonietta, which is an orchestra in Chicago. So they asked for another concerto for their 2020 season. So I wrote another one, and so we'll get to perform it early 2021.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, I I have one more question for you.
Ah.
Amazing Grace.
Mm.
Amazing Grace. How has that been your signature piece or one of your
You know,
signature pieces?
the people made it my signature piece. For me, I just played it. Like there's a a, a bass player named Jaco Pastorius, and when it comes to electric bass, Jaco is one of the most famous that there are. And Jaco, let me see, can you hear that at all?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Jaco made it very popular to play what we call harmonics. Okay, and it's when you just touch a note instead of pressing it down. I lightly touch it, and I get a higher bell tone,
Hmm.
and it'll just ring, right? So Jaco wrote a whole song on his first record with harmonics. And all of us musicians, not just bass players, were blown away. I remember a drummer who first played it for me, and I thought it was a piano. And when he told me it was a bass, and I was maybe early teens, maybe 11 or 12 when I heard it. And my mind says, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I got a record. I made a cassette of my friend's recording of Jaco, and I got my bass, and I just did not sleep until I learned that whole song. And and it's just bell, right? And that just knocked me out. And so after I found those, the bass had grown, and I knew where the harmonics were, and my parents were always singing spirituals, or playing, Mahalia Jackson, or gospel records. And I realized this melody was right there. All right, so easy. They're all right there. So I just put music to it, and I could put harmonics and real notes. So with this, I can put the low note under it, let the low note ring. Ah, my fingers are kicking in.
Oof. It it lights you up. It just lights you up from the inside, and it's like we know that melody, but you sing my soul.
Thank
Play
you.
my soul.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful song.
Ah,
Amazing Grace.
hmm. I've enjoyed playing that with bowls too. It's
Oh
it's
man,
it's amazing.
I want to hear
It's an
that.
amazing grace.
Get a bowl ringing, or beyond,
Uh,
behind that, and oh, that'd be perfect. We'll have to do that sometime.
I'd love that. I remember I sang in a little church in Tonga, and again, like just what we've been talking about, the power of music. We didn't speak the same language, but boy, I asked them to join with me in the bowls, and kids and grown-ups and alike, everyone started singing that song.
Yeah,
It,
nice, nice,
yeah.
beautiful.
Victor, thank you so much. I, um, yeah,
I
just
appreciate it.
everything
I'm
so
honored,
open.
honored to be on your show.